The views and opinions expressed in the Distracted Librarians podcast do not necessarily reflect those of Bloomfield Township Public Library, Bloomfield Community Television, the Birmingham Area Cable Board, or its producers or production staff.
Hello and welcome. We're the Distracted Librarians, your friendly neighborhood bookworms who can't resist the siren call of movies, video games, music, and everything else in the pop culture universe.
Think of this podcast as a digital campfire where we share our latest obsessions, analyze the hidden depths of our favorite distractions, and maybe rediscover the joy of reading in between.
So, if you're a fellow media junkie, a book lover, or someone looking for a fun, engaging escape from your daily grind, you've come to the right place.
Sit back, relax, and prepare to get delightfully distracted with us.
Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about reading slumps and how to get out of them.
Reading slumps are the worst. I hate them. I say this because I do consider that I've been coming out of a reading slump for the last 4 to 5 years. I used to read so much, and then I couldn't read for like a year. And that's, I think, is the hardest for me, is those reading slumps where it's just like, I cannot sit and read. Mm-hmm. I will stare at a page, but there's no comprehension.
Sure.
There's no meaning.
So what does that look like, or what does that feel like to you, Killian? Because I'm in one right now, and I'm wondering if my experience is like yours.
For me, it's like I said, I'm in the process of coming out of it very slowly. But it's just this, like, I want to read. I enjoy reading. I know this. But it's I can't invest in anything. I can't get my brain to latch on to the words on the page. When I was a kid, I used to fully fall into books and just see the whole thing play out in my head. Mm. And I can't do that anymore the way I used to. And it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's also really sad.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think frustrating is definitely the word to be used here.
Yeah.
For me, a reading slump is less, I cannot read right now, and more, my brain cannot process new information right now. And that expands to all forms of media. But when I'm in that mindset, I can't watch new TV shows. I don't like listening to new music. So I exist in a reread headspace, and then I'll go and watch old Great British Baking Show episodes and just sit in it for 2 or 3 days, and then I'll be fine. But the reading slump really kicks in when I have to read a new thing. If I hit one of those spaces, but book club is on Monday, that's when I'm in trouble.
Sure. Yeah. So generally, what do we think the cause is of reading slumps? What are some normal causes for this? I personally think stress, burnout.
For sure.
Especially, because this is our job. It's our job to read, which is awesome and fantastic when you want to do that or you're capable of doing it. But if you're burned out and you've been reading a bunch of stuff that maybe you didn't want to read, it can make it a lot harder to jump into something else.
And in addition to that, our job is to read, but there is not designated time in the workday set aside for reading.
Yes.
So some of it
Little known
is...
fact.
Yeah. So your librarians are not in the back, off desk reading a book for work. That happens sometimes, most of the time, away from the building.
Sure. And then there's distractions from other forms of entertainment, right? So let's say you're in a situation where you're definitely in a reading slump and you all you want to do is sit down and binge TV shows all day or something like that. It makes it even harder to get back to the actual reading part of things.
I know for me it hits most often when I'm overwhelmed, just in general. The 2 times that I can remember in recent memory having a reading slump that lasted weeks, months sometimes, was the first couple months of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
And after my most recent breakup, where I was just this isn't happening.
Sure.
This is not real. And I shut down so hard on absorbing new information that I was rereading the same 4 books on a cycle for like
Okay.
a month and a half.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And I was reading for hours a day because it
Yeah.
was my comfort space. But
Sure.
one of them even had a sequel that I could not touch.
Okay.
I just kept reading the first book.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking of stress in the pandemic, similarly, what got me through the first portion as like a comfort was listening to the audiobook of A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yes.
Which came out however long ago. However, the majority of the audiobooks are read by Tim Curry.
Nice.
And my profound
his voice.
love of Tim Curry is like, I'm like, oh, Tim Curry. And so I listened to the whole series. I had read in print up to book like 5 and stopped. But I read all the way through. But then I kept going back to The Reptile Room. Like I would read like a book and then I would go back to book 2 and then I would go back to book 2 and just, I don't know why. I think it was my favorite when I was a kid. And I knew like I could kind of start quoting it from memory, and it was like I couldn't move past like a certain point. I would have to return to that one spot and then go for it. It was weird.
Side note, Tim Curry is too good in those.
Yes.
And his hacking coughs still feel like a personal attack in that audiobook.
Oh my
He is so aggressively real with that. It's haunting.
Yeah. Mr. Poe. Yeah. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, I think it's important that we talk a little bit about taking a break. So, like, if you're in a reading slump and, it's just not happening, I think it is so important to sometimes just say, I'm going to take a break now instead of like the constant pressure, because that's probably not going to help. It's not going to make you feel better if you're like, why can't I read right now? What is the matter with me? None of those things are really going to help.
And similarly, to bring up a similar question, like why do we feel like it's recreational? It's a hobby. Why do we feel so compelled to? I must read this. I must finish this book. Like what is the genesis of that impulse? Because it's something that like we talk about, patrons talk about.
Sure.
Like where is that coming? Why? What pressure? I don't know. It's weird.
Maybe it's like part of identity in a way, where if you think of yourself as a reader,
Yeah.
and then you're no longer reading, you're like, wait, who am I now?
Yeah. That's.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I identify that way.
Oh, definitely.
You know.
There was a period right after college where I was, working at Target and there was no designated reading time, and I'd just finished being an English major and having a lot of required reading, where I didn't read anything for like 3 years. And starting work at the library is what ended up breaking me out of that. But even without that, I had that really weird identity moment of like, I've been a reader my entire life. I'm absolutely still a reader.
Yeah.
But what was the last book I picked up?
Sure.
That's so funny you say that. I did the same thing after I graduated.
Yeah.
It was when I went to the bookstore and I got Anna Karenina. And I was like, this is the biggest book I can find. I'm going to read this all summer because I'm a reader. Like, it's like, dude, like, yeah, I did the same thing.
The post-English major burnout is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, I didn't have that same experience getting out of my English major. That being said, I was a very weird English major. And I read everything for certain classes. And I figured out what I needed to for the other books. But so I came out of undergrad and went straight into grad school. And as I started grad school, there were a lot of books from authors that I really liked that were coming out. And so I still had this drive where I was like, yes, I want those stories. And also I would like to escape from the fact that I am working 30-ish hours a week at a coffee shop and going to grad school full-time and coaching color guard, and I need me time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any trouble reading things then. Now I'm super busy and I have trouble reading things.
Definitely. Well, I mean, personally for me, it was like transitioning into parenthood was like super difficult for me. I went from working full time to having 2 very small children at home and being a stay-at-home mom. And you would think, oh my God, that's fantastic. You're going to read so many books. But like, it was the absolute most horrible. Like, I couldn't focus. I couldn't pay attention. And then I had like this overwhelming feeling that I should be doing something else. And I think that was like, there was this constant battle with like, I want to read so bad because I should be able to do that. And then the other part of me that was like, there is no way that you're going to sit down and do that when like you can't hardly take a shower half the time. Like,
right.
You know?
I was going to say like, I'm staying at home. I'm living my own life. I'm facilitating the lives of 2 other humans.
Yes.
I'm running my household. Like I'm doing, I'm a spouse. I'm like, you have all of these roles that you all have to do all at once.
Definitely.
And so it's sort of like, reading is a luxury in as much as
It really is.
It's still a part of your identity.
Yeah, and I was lucky because we read to the girls every day from the moment they came home from the hospital.
Right.
So even as a newborn, we're sitting there with the very hungry caterpillar and all of that stuff. So
That's
like
awesome.
there was reading that was going on, but like they were words on a page, let's be real. They were not, it wasn't going to be anything deeply profound that I was taking from any of it. It was like, I'm going to instill that my children are going to be readers as they grow and that they're literate and all of that good stuff.
Well, and hearing you talk about now that your girls are older and the books that you're reading to them as bedtime stories still, I think that's so cool because I didn't necessarily have that by the time I was reading. I was just kind of left to, okay, Killian's going to be reading before bed, and then we have to make sure she actually turns the light off. Which never happened. I just got back up and turned it back on.
Sure.
But that's really cool. I still read stuff as a kid, but the things that you read to them, I'm just like, those are such good books, and I'm so glad like they have you to show those to them.
Oh, thank you.
You're aware of all of those.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was given a tape deck with books on tape and a book.
Absolutely.
And my parents were just like, here, have fun. And so that's like how I learned how to read. And that was how I entertained myself before bed.
Was it like the Disney read-along books?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was the 80s. This is Gen X. We were left to our own devices. Here's a tape. Enjoy yourself, child. And that was what it was. And that's cool and all. But like, I really want to be involved and I want to be part of the process. I love the books I'm reading my kids just as much as I hope that they do. So to be part of that is just so cool. It's so cool.
That's awesome.
And I think you said it earlier, like there's a voice in the back of your head going, I have so many things that I should be doing, and so I don't have time for this. And I think that is a big thing for all of us, in different ways, where it's you sit down to read and it's like, okay, but I need to do dishes, I need to do laundry, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do the other thing. And it's like finding the way to shut that voice down so you can just enjoy reading for a minute is really hard.
Adulting is a major bummer. That's the deal.
Absolutely.
Right there. Yeah.
And there's a balance to strike to it too, because I've also gotten a little too good at shutting that voice down, where I'll go an entire weekend of just reading and enjoying whatever media I'm enjoying that weekend, and then get to like 5:30 p.m. on a Sunday, like, oh, I had things to do.
Yeah.
I need to do laundry so I have work clothes.
Right?
Oops. Yeah.
I used to, and I this is another thing where I don't know what happened, but I used to put on an audiobook and iron or like run the Swiffer over the floorboards. Oh yeah, like I would like.
I heard people do this.
Yeah, put in an audiobook. I'm like, I'm gonna do laundry.
But...
I'm gonna tidy up. I'm gonna make my lunch. I'm gonna whatever. And I'm like, okay, I can do 2 things. I can make my work recreational somehow. It'll be fun. Like, and I'm like, and it's not fun anymore.
No. I mean, if you're doing something that you don't want to do in the first place and you're adding a book to it, that's like kind of creating like the psychology where it's not a good situation.
It's like a Pavlovian response of bad.
Yes.
Like where I've taken something I enjoy and
you're
I've now
poisoning the well.
married it to yes, I've married it with something that I don't enjoy, and now I'm like, audiobooks just mean drudgery and work.
Yeah, don't do that.
And now I can't, like, even in like driving to work, I'm like, I now have bad associations with audiobooks in the car, like, because driving is terrible and commutes are terrible and everything's awful. And I'm like, and I have, like you said, I have fully poisoned the well by trying to like have my cake and eat it too. But I, again, don't know why am I like this?
It makes me feel better now that I've never been able to embrace that. I can only do audiobooks either in the car or on walks.
Yeah.
I cannot function with them otherwise because I will either, like, I've tried to put on an audiobook and, like, clean the apartment, and I will either clean the apartment and then realize I haven't absorbed the last 20 minutes
like
of
I'll
it.
stop listening.
Or
I'll just,
I will sit in this
tune it out.
chair and not clean the apartment and just sit there listening to an audiobook.
I would put it with like tasks that don't require a lot of brain power. Like you can just move the iron over the clothing. Like you can just sweep. You can just whatever. Like I was listening to something and like deadheading my plants, being like, yes, I can do this rote task and focus on this book. And you can, but it just feels like noise after a while.
Yeah.
And so I think that impulse of like recreating my work or working my recreation has put me in the slump, I think, more than anything else. So don't learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did. It's awful.
Do learn from her mistakes.
Yeah.
So what are some ways to get out of a reading slump?
I don't know.
What do you guys think? I mean, so what about book clubs? I think book clubs are a great way to get out of a reading slump.
Doesn't work for me simply because if I have to read something, like I said earlier, I got an English major and did not fully read a lot of the things I was supposed to because I had to read them, and therefore my brain went, no, I'm not doing this.
All right, so book clubs I think work for some people.
Yeah.
It works for me for the length of that book.
Okay.
Because the book club is required reading, I can do it for that time because my brain processes it as task.
Sure.
So it's less, this is something that I'm reading because reading is a thing I'm doing now. It's on the list of, I need to read this book, I need to do the laundry, I need to go shopping, etc. So when I finish that book, I'm not in a different place.
Right. I mean, I think just being able to have a discussion about the book with other people sometimes can make it more enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you're like, oh my gosh, I just read this part. I have to talk to somebody. It's going to drive me bananas. And you're like, who's read it? And nobody's read it. And you're like, wait, what? Like, who am I going to talk to?
I literally just said this to a fellow librarian last night where they were saying, I'm reading this book, this, and this, and I have this, and this thought about it. And I was like, I too will read this book, and then we will talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm here for you.
It's like an impromptu book club that just happens. Where you're like, I agree to do this with you.
Those are my
Let's
favorites.
go.
And this is the second time I've done this with this colleague, and both times, I haven't read it yet, obviously, but I'm excited about it because the first time was really rewarding.
Nice.
That is the main reason that I want to look into transitioning from Goodreads to Storygraph.
What is that?
Storygraph is a different system. We'll talk later. But
I'll show you.
But it has
I have one.
It has a feature for buddy reading where you can log thoughts and tag it to a page number.
Oh.
And those thoughts won't show up to the person that you're reading it with until they've also indicated that they've read to that page number.
That sounds super fun.
I also really like Storygraph because it has a lot of like questions that it asks you when you finish about the book. Like, is it character or plot driven? Are there trigger warnings? Things like that.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
It also lets you do quarter star rankings, which frankly is the main reason that I don't go for it because that's too much thought.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And see, that makes it easier for me because I'm like, it's not quite a 5-star.
I was gonna say, what if it's a 2.5 and not a 3? Like it's because sometimes it is.
Yeah, I get into this whole like, it's not quite that, but maybe.
I paused when I went to download it the first time. I sat there and I was like, what would qualify a book being a 4.75 star to me?
Oh, that's
and I did not want to complete that thought, and so
fair.
I didn't download the app.
I mean, I guess it's nice that it's available for people
Yes.
that are that specific, but I'm probably never ever
But just because
gonna
it
do
gives you that option doesn't mean you have to use it.
Yes, exactly. Right.
But I do want Storygraph desperately for the buddy read feature because it's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had no idea such a thing existed.
Yeah, me neither.
I have to look it up immediately now.
Honestly, sometimes that is what helps me actually get the motivation to read something, because specifically it's Drew.
I was going to say it's Drew.
Who will be like, oh my God, I read this. Or Drew will write a review on Goodreads. And I'm like, I need to understand now.
I think I'm on the 4th or 5th book that I have read specifically because of Drew for that very thing that you just said.
What about revisiting old favorites? I know, Drew, you said that that's a great way for you to kind of keep in the loop of things. What are some favorites that you would read just to kind of keep things going, or to get back into a reading mindset?
One of my easiest is the Percy Jackson books.
Okay.
Because they're so quick that I feel like I'm reading again. And I know them so well at this point.
Nice.
That it's a comfort to go back to them, and it's nice to put it down 4 hours later, having read an entire book. It's like, oh, I'm doing the thing again.
Yeah.
Mine are the same books that I constantly have the audiobooks for. Tamora Pierce books, or The Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reed. That's always checked out on Libby. One of those is always on there, because that is my falling asleep audiobook. Because even if I zone out or fall asleep, I set a 15-minute sleep timer on it. And so I don't miss much, because it takes me forever to fall asleep. Or if I zone out completely, it's only 15 minutes of it. But I know them so well that I can start anywhere in those books, and I know what has happened and what will happen. And so those are also, it's also the audiobooks. It will always be the audiobooks for those, because there is a lot less effort involved in putting on headphones or putting in earbuds, or if I'm at home, just like pressing play on the phone, than there is in settling down and holding the book and getting comfortable. And that's a whole process.
What about you?
I think it's anything that I read during my happiest reading period, which I think was probably, I don't know, I was 22, 23. It was a hard time. I remember that being a hard time in my life, and I read a lot of things because it made it easier. And some of the things that I read then, even now, still give me that feeling of comfort. And so I think that was like when I first got introduced to Joe Hill, which feels odd to say. Like, Joe Hill is such a comfort read.
I love Joe.
Thank you. See, you get it.
We'll talk about my comfort video game sometime.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, or like Neil Gaiman, Murakami. Like some of those, like Never Let Me Go is a comfort read. Again, weird, not like, you know. Yeah, I think it's those that bring back that feeling. It's reading for me is very emotional or emotionally rooted. I think that's the case for a lot of people. So I think it's anything that gives me that feeling again.
Definitely.
How about you?
So the Graveyard book is one that I go back to over and over and over again. I'm actually reading it to my kids right now, and it makes me so happy inside.
Are they loving it?
They are loving it. I wasn't sure because, like, being 6 and 8, like, I know that there's definitely some dark stuff going on there, and there's some character development that is probably above their heads, but they're absolutely riveted, and like they feel the mystery. So that's really all I ever wanted.
Well, that's something they'll be able to come back to when they're older and read it differently.
Sure.
And I think one of the themes in the Graveyard Book that I recall is there's so much kindness in that book.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much gratitude and so much kindness and so much support from person to person.
Definitely.
I think that's important too.
And then another thing is that I will listen to Norse mythology narrated by Neil Gaiman just as, like, I need to calm down and feel good. So I'm going to put him on and listen to him talk to me for a while.
I'm like, yes, Neil Gaiman's voice. Like, it's
it is like, it's a balm for my soul.
Yes. Yeah. Neil Gaiman, Stephen Lang, Tim Curry, like some of those people, like Stephen Fry is another.
Stephen Fry is good.
It just makes me like,
Yeah. And then I just want to, like, really briefly go over kids reading slumps.
Yeah. So what is that like?
It happens. I mean, it really happens.
And is it kids that come up and ask for it, or is it parents?
It's usually
that
parents.
are like, my kid won't, you know.
I don't know that kids are like self-aware enough to be like,
know that that's what
I feel like I should be doing this thing. Like they
That's
haven't gotten
true.
quite there yet, but their parents might be, concerned. Like, oh no, like my kid fell out of the reading habit. So like, how do we fix that? Like, what can we do?
And I think it's the same kind of thing that as when we get parents who are like, oh, my kid doesn't like to read. I really need to get my kid to read. I really need to get my kid to read. Generally, when people come up to me with stuff like that, it's what does your kid like? And here's the thing. As a parent, you're not always going to like the books that they want to read.
Or
fair
love,
enough.
like,
Yeah.
you're not
Like,
expected to love it.
And the thing is, I say this so much when I read reviews of kids' books, it's not for you. Because people will get down, particularly on kids' books or teen books, that, oh my gosh, this main character is so whiny. Oh my gosh, this main character is so selfish. And I'm like, that main character is a child.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. And you are going to have 1,000 times easier time getting your kid to read something that they are interested in and want to read, whether it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid or a graphic novel or Captain Underpants, or if they're a 10-year-old but they want to read picture books. Like, the easiest way is go with what they are willing to read. The rest will come.
Yeah.
But
it's the same thing like we were talking. It's all about creating like that good feeling along with the reading so that you're creating a habit, a good habit, a habit that they will enjoy and hopefully enjoy for the rest of their life, right? So, yeah, Captain Underpants is potty humor. But really, what does your kid actually want to read? It's going to be poop and farts, and that's okay. We can accept that.
It's also developmentally appropriate.
It could mean that they go from Captain Underpants to Dogman to something else, and then now we've got a reader, right?
I had a huge Captain Underpants phase.
Oh, so
It
did
was
I.
hilarious.
I love it
Yeah.
as an adult, and having not had read it as a kid because that was just not my generation. But now I'm like, I will sit and watch the Captain Underpants movie with no problem, and I would like somebody to come at me about it.
Well, and I mean, Captain Underpants, I think, is a great example of the same. Like, Dave Pilkey is the author.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Dave Pilkey, I believe, illustrated. I'm gonna have to look this up later. I hope someone either knows or corrects me or something. But there's a book called The Place That Nobody Stopped. And he either illustrates it and is the author of the text, or there's another author of the text. Anyway, I don't remember. But it is an absolutely beautiful story of a multi-generational family in a very specific, 20th century time. And I believe it's either during or post World War II. I have not read this book in a long time. But the point is, I read The Place That Nobody Stopped because I recognized Dave Pilkey. And there is illustration in the book, but it's mostly text, and it is an absolutely beautiful book. And had I not read Captain Underpants, I never would have read The Place That Nobody Stopped.
Yeah.
And it is and I think that is 100% what you said, is creating this good feeling, creating this developmentally appropriate, activity or habit or recreational enjoyment of whatever you want to call it that moves you into other things. It moves you into, different genres or different, types of stories as you move through your life.
You see that a lot with teens to adults now, too.
Right, exactly.
The teens who grew up reading Divergent. An okay book. Crack. Very, very addictive, but, a good book. And now Veronica Roth is writing these phenomenal adult fantasy books.
And see, I didn't like what happened with the Divergent trilogy and have not picked up Veronica Roth since because of it. So apparently now I have to do that.
Oh, they're good.
But I think, my advice for parents and for kids who are going through it, teens and adults, if you're dealing with a reading slump, step outside of that. Go into a different hobby, go into different things, because it'll lead you back to it eventually. I have found books that I've wanted to read since, kind of stopping reading because of scrolling TikTok, because of being playing a video game and then someone being like, oh, this is kind of like this video game, or basically, like, you'll find your way back to it eventually.
It's all connected.
It just sometimes takes more time than you want to give it.
Yeah, it's a process. All things are a process.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Distracted Librarians.
If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to us at distracted@btpl.org.
Until then, keep those pages turning and those screens lighting up.
We'll catch you in the next episode.